Welcome to our chat. Catherine is the owner and founder of On Q Recruitment, one of Australia's most prestigious and well-known recruitment firms in the healthcare and life sciences space, and was established some 25 years ago. Is that right, Catherine?
Correct. Celebrating our 25th anniversary.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the Australian market and what are the exciting trends that are sort of shaping the Aussie market right now?
That's a question. Suppose if I look at it holistically, just returned from IO in Boston in 2025, and I was on the Australian Pavilion presenting Australia at the biotech conference. It was excellent to see how Australia was viewed internationally and hopefully in Japan, the stable country who is really investing in life sciences across all areas. Got a very stable government that's been voted back in. So that's given everybody some security and continuity. It's really exciting. Recently, Australia signed a biotech bridge with UK, encouraged free trade agreement to make it easier for life science companies and recognition of data and regulatory IP. There's a lot happening, and fortunately, one of the big drivers for Australia has been the R&D tax grant, and that there's still a commitment to that. The Australian market post-COVID, there was a real commitment to looking at sovereign manufacturing. So it's very much life sciences, pharmaceutical industry. So it's a really exciting time. I think 2025 has been much more positive for Australia.
Yeah, that's interesting. The government gives quite a bit of support to life science companies.
Yes, correct. In terms of Japanese coming to Australia, which I met quite a few at Boston. We do have some Japanese clients that are into the Australian market. About 3 or 4 key reasons why they come here. This is world-class research. There's hubs in the different states. Your clients, they've got a choice of the East Coast, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, but we've also got Adelaide and Perth. Perth is on the west coast of Australia, which is less than 4 hours away from Japan, Singapore. Some amazing government initiatives. That includes the R&D tax grant, which is up to 43%. Got a huge initiative around the Medical Research Future Fund and a Biomedical Translation Fund. Strategically, Australia is often being seen as a gateway to set up a company here and then launch back into Asia Pacific. People are very surprised by the skilled workforce we have from clinicians and regulatory and scientists. Most importantly for life science companies is excellent protection of IP. Also, the TGA is internationally respected and has also from a phase 1 clinical trials is one of the fastest to market. Some really great reasons to look at Australia.
Right? Yeah, right. And in terms of recruiting, are there any unique aspects to the Australian market?
Yes, what we've seen is since the 60s, early 70s, the majority of the international pharmaceutical companies domiciled in Australia. We've got 30 years plus of senior executives been operating both in the pharma, biopharma, medtech, and life sciences sector. Got a healthy, competitive venture capital area. What that means is if a company is looking at coming to Australia, we do have the research scientists, but we've also got clinical research, regulatory, market access, very strong commercial marketing, and medical affairs expertise.
And what are some of the common learning curves that, companies coming into Australia or expanding, into Australia?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our observation is when companies are coming to Australia, one of the first decisions is where to base their head office. And often my advice to them is to dig that's to some degree influenced by what sort of talent they're looking for, because it does vary from city to city. A lot of new entrants into Australia are surprised by the geographical size of Australia. We have not just 1 or 2 major cities, but we've got 4 cities that people can domicile their head office. And it's a question of which one is most practical, has the access to the population, to the key opinion leaders that they may need. I think there's a surprise by that one. Also, there's a surprise in certain pockets, a level of sophistication. People across the breadth of what they do. Company sizes aren't as large as overseas, but there's more depth and breadth of experience.
It's interesting about the different candidates in how would you group them? I mean, from Melbourne to Sydney to Brisbane to Perth.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a great question. I think historically from a manufacturing perspective, it's been very influenced by Sydney than Melbourne. From a sales perspective, the more senior executives traditionally were provided in the Sydney or Melbourne offices or these. Brisbane, Adelaide, and Perth have definitely continued to their expertise. When it comes to, say, clinical research, phase 1 unit in Adelaide and Perth are definitely on a par with Sydney and Melbourne.
And are the states, so there's federal grants, but then are there state grants as
Correct.
well?
It's very competitive. So when an overseas company wants to domicile a head office, depending on the state system, so not too dissimilar to America where you've got different states and territories. We've got that in Australia as well. It's definitely a competition amongst the state governments and the local state life sciences to do whatever they can to partner and make the pathway very smooth. So whilst there's a team Australia, once you come and you've made the decision to come to Australia, everybody would like you to domicile your office, your head office in our city.
Yeah, competitive. What are some of the myths and misconceptions that maybe you would have heard in Boston would have been great? What did people say?
I think some myths that are correct. So I'm obviously originally from Ireland and definitely coming to Australia 30 plus years ago. It's a very friendly and welcoming society. It's very multicultural in Australia. That's one of the reasons it's quite attractive. I do clinical trials here and there's a lot of people speaking different languages. So it's a great cross section of population and key opinion leaders. There's a myth, Philip, that Australians are really laid back and everybody goes to the beach. In fact, we've got one of the longest working hours in the OECD. My clients that work for international companies, very well versed because of our time zone, working on late nights, telecons, between 11 p.m. to, 3 a.m. in the morning. I think there's a myth around we're really laid back and people are often surprised by the work ethic. I think culturally, we sort of sit between parts of Europe and US as well. It's really it's a respectful culture, but probably a direct culture. There's an emphasis, on being on time and being professional and cutting to the heart of the matter quickly. Australia also is very sophisticated at doing business with other head offices. So tend to tailor the communication depending on who they're dealing with from a client perspective, an employer perspective. So that we all go to the beach on 2:00 in the afternoon is totally wrong.
Right.
And
I think you've lived in Australia longer than I have. What are the surprises that employees have? I mean, probably some of those ones that you've already mentioned, but is there a story or something that jumps to mind?
a great question. What I think reality of the size of the country, reputation is really important. From an employer perspective, and who you hire say a lot, not too dissimilar to Japan or any country. First hires actually a representation of your employer brand. So there's a real perception about importance placed on that. You've hired the right person and they're representing your company brand correctly. They're probably surprised by the level of professionalism. I think they're expecting more like a laid back culture, but it's not. It's quite formal. When people in business setting, it's very friendly, but again, it's courteous. Australia is quite a rule-abiding country. So I think there's a perception, a larrikin Australian made, that people break the rules. That's very, very far from the truth. If you look at Australia during COVID, we all complied. It's a really compliant, follow the rules and respectful, very friendly, approachable, and probably a direct. I think from a decision-making perspective, if you look at it, Australia is not hierarchical like other countries. As an employer, you've got to expect to consult your employees on decisions, not just make decisions top down. If you compare Australia to some of the European countries that are very consensus basis, more consultative, but ultimately the manager would still make the decision, but employees would expect to be consulted and have a voice and to speak up, ultimately respect the decision.
Right. Yeah, very true. And what advice would you give to a company, coming into the Australian market or looking to do their clinical trials in Japan or whatever the case is?
So if they're looking to expand their clinical trials, they've got a choice of all the 5 major cities, some fantastic phase 1. It really is a sophisticated tree to do that and navigate these committees. The key opinion leaders are access to a diverse patient. I think my advice is be clear on what they're hoping to get and to be honest. I'll probably get a really good response if keep the lines of communication open. I think building the relationships and the companies that take the time to come to Australia or invest in the teams, build professional relationships, ones that are most successful.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, and what are the red flags, or what should companies be careful of when it comes to recruitment?
The Australian market when people are looking to change job. Do annually On Q Recruitment for 18 years now has been doing a salary and a job market report. By and large, the people working in this sector are very happy and engaged. Sector treats their employees well, they're well paid. When companies are coming to Australia, we've already had 20, 30 years of working for diverse biotech, medtech companies, large and small. Employees and candidates want a very clear value proposition. They want to know why they should join you. It's salary is important, but they want to know about your product, your vision, your asset. Sometimes I think not Japanese companies, but other countries, they'll come with predefined expectations around what the salary and the benefits and the bonuses are. And Australians will not move jobs to be worse off. They'll expect an increase in the base salary. They'll expect, if it's a risk, to be compensated for that. So if they're going to move jobs, they want a financial increase. You're already preaching to people working in this sector. They're already there because they love what they do. Got to recognizing that a lot of the pool work for really well other competitive life science companies. Therefore, you've got to know what is your unique selling point. Why would someone look to leave? So very clear on the value proposition is where we advise new entrants to come in, how they pitch their opportunity and their role when they go to the market, particularly in that very competitive roles.
Yeah, no, that's such a great point. The value proposition that, companies, that's clear in their mind.
Correct.
Because then it can be clear in the recruiter's mind. And it's true in Japan too, spend a few minutes at the beginning, several minutes at the beginning of the interviewing, explaining your mission and, get the candidates kind of excited before you jump into sort of a formal question and answer, because the best candidates are happy, they've got a job.
That's right.
They don't necessarily need to change.
No.
But like I said previously, there is a window. All candidates have a window, if the timing is right for a fantastic opportunity.
Right.
So, I guess kind of wrapping it up, why should a company, coming into, Australia looking to expand their business, why should they partner with On Q?
What we can do is smooth the way for their to Australia, can de-risk they hire. Those first key appointments are absolutely critical. Because of our relationship, the candidates and how we're respected after 25 years, people will return our phone calls. We can get candidates that may not respond to an ad or to other providers, at least consider the proposition and give them feedback from our intel and our market report on salaries, advise them on time to fill the nuances of goes beyond recruitment. Where are you thinking of locating your office? Where are you thinking? What are the benefits? What's your backwards plan? So we have not only the recruitment, but we've got immigration lawyer, we've got a HR, an employment lawyer. So we've whole suite we can offer them in terms of setup in the back end, as well as the recruit access to talent as well when they come here. We're really nice people to deal with.
Right. One-stop shop. On Q's got you covered. So look, thank you, Catherine. And, if you're listening to this and you want to know more about the Australian market, whether you've decided to come in or you just want to have a general chat and bend Catherine's ear and find out, more information, please drop me an email, drop me a DM on LinkedIn, and I'll happily put you in touch. Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks, Philip.